Welcome to the Mime Radio Show. I'm Karen Hoyer.
And I'm James Donlin. Here we are in season 4, Karen. It's been amazing. You know, how many interviews have we had? Somewhere over 30 or around 30 in a very short period of time. And I'm really excited about today's guests, fascinating background story. And I'm really looking forward to it.
The Mimestrals.
Yes. I want to thank, of course, if you could peel back our images, you would see Mike Diaz hovering over the buttons and the levers and the screens. He's our producer. And of course, he can push any button at any time and make us disappear. So we have to thank him for being focused in this experience.
A little intro.
Yeah. Let me tell you something about our guests. And let me put my spectacles on here. This is fascinating. In 1974, that's a long time ago, everybody. That's how long was that? 50 years ago, almost 50 years. At Hillcrest High School in Queens, New York, the administration hit upon a brilliant way to inspire a diverse learning environment, a learning module called Theater Careers, and more specifically, a deep dive into the art of mime. The course was so popular that a touring mime company was formed called the Mimestrals, directed by Peter Kaufman. We met every weekend, had long, grueling rehearsals where he taught us the art and skill of mime, recalls former member Denise Jones. We were a mixed group, Black, white, Latino. We wore whiteface, black leotards, performed without speaking, and people loved us. We were like celebrities, as big as the basketball team. Over its 14-year existence, the Mimestrals presented over 140 performances and workshops across the 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as Long Island and Westchester County. Company members were encouraged to remain in the troupe even after graduation, and the ensemble became an independent, not-for-profit touring company and grew to 16 performers and 3 stage managers. Director Peter Kaufman told us about the pleasure of leading a company that felt like family, a group of young adults that stayed loyal and committed to the art of mime and to that unique camaraderie that fostered a true sense of accomplishment. Those young adults now range in age from 55 to 65. So, with us today to tell us about their experience as the Mimestrals are director Peter Kaufman and former ensemble members Denise Jones and Jackie Gordon.
And here they are. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
This is really, really amazing. And what is totally amazing to me, and one of the reasons that we really responded to Peter's suggestion that we have you on, is how you all have stayed connected. So there's something really a strong essence of this group. So we want to go back to the beginning. So Peter, start at the beginning. What was going on at Hillcrest High School in Queens? You were a theater arts teacher, and how did you get people interested in mime? What was the reason that you chose mime? How did it all get started?
When I arrived at Hillcrest in 1973, the mime program had already started. It was, at least in terms of classes, but there weren't any staged performances. So the chair of the department came to me and said, look, we'd like to train you in mime and have you do a quick curtain raiser in front of our fall production, just maybe a couple of little things so people kind of get a sense of mime. And so I proceeded to find some people who were in my classes who might be interested. Denise was one of them. And we put together a little curtain raiser. And the response was wonderful. And I remember going to Steve Posner, who was the chair. And I said, it went so well, but as is the case with high school and college theater so many times, you rehearse for a long time, you perform twice, and then you're done. You go your separate ways. And he said, why does it have to be that way? I had no answer. And he said, why don't you form a permanent company? Travel around, go to places that wouldn't normally see mime. And immediately all kinds of ideas went through my mind. And we had auditions, and that launched the Mimestrals.
Now
I have a question. So Denise, maybe you're a good one to give your thoughts. So why do you think they chose Peter to lead this project? I'm just curious. Well, like, why would the director come to this man Peter and choose him to start this project, do you think?
Well, you know, Peter was new and young, handsome also. He's just a few years older than us. And as he describes the story, the drama club was the big seller, you know, always of every school. The drama club and the drama club and the drama club. And as he's telling the story, I'm looking at the school newspaper that I just happened to have from when they did the show. We were the opener. And at the end of the show, the drama club bombed out so bad, the Mime show stole the show. Everybody, and Peter had all this, you know, hit music. We had mime performances with the up and coming music. And we did a stroke piece, and they just went crazy.
So you would say Peter was very I don't want to say hip. That's even older. He was very close to the times. You know, he was close to your culture and what was going on in the world at that time.
Yes. The music was sounds that were playing on the radio like that day.
So it's really interesting, that time period in the mid 1970s, there's a lot of mime going on. There's a lot of creativity of people coming together and becoming like a ensemble or a duo or a solo and touring with mime. So it was really something that was going on. I mean, that was the first time I ever saw Marcel Marceau. We had a visiting artist come to my high school, and that was the first time I took a mime class. So I'm curious about whether you had seen mime before. So,
never.
Wait, no, you hadn't? What about you, Jackie?
Never.
I wasn't with the Mimestrals in Hillcrest. I'm actually 58. So Peter said that the age range now is 55 to 65. So I'm the baby of the bunch. And so when the Mimestrals moved out of Hillcrest and was an incorporated group traveling on their own through school and Jamaica Arts Center, they were resident. Mimestrals had a residency at Jamaica Arts Center, and seeking out activities for myself. I was in 10th grade. I was 15, and I went to Jamaica Arts Center to see what they had to offer. And they had this mime class. No, I did not know. I don't think I knew what mime was. But if I did, I didn't think I could do it. But I take advantage of opportunities, and I like to do new things. So I went. That's how I joined the Mimestrals.
So your exposure was you saw people your own age performing. That's what brought you in.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that's interesting. Yeah,
what James attracted you? What in this idea that Peter was offering and the art of mime, what would have been attractive in that art form for you? Because it sounds like it was a very diverse culturally group. Like, what do you think were the hooks that got you interested in this? You know, that's such a universal thing, you know.
It's, you know, and Denise is, I mean, she just looks very ordinary right now, but she's exceptional. Denise is exceptional. And so Denise actually had several pieces where she performed by herself individually. And when you see the Mimestrals, as you probably know yourselves as mimes, but the Mimestrals are exceptional, perform and a whole story. It was just incredible. I'd never seen anything like it, where there are no props except the body. There's no voice. Most of our pieces, I don't know if we had any pieces without music. We may have, but many of our pieces had music accompaniment. But to have a whole story, and it felt full with a setting and plots and narrative with only using the body, I thought was just mind-blowing and fascinating.
And you were able to create your own stories, right? I mean, I'm assuming that the material that you performed came out of your own life
Yeah.
experience and your thoughts about what it was like to be alive at that time. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
What do you think,
absolutely.
Denise? Denise, what you have some
We
ideas?
had, yeah, we had several pieces, like you said, things that did happen. And we have a piece, the bus stop, what happens at a bus stop. And it just went from there. And some of our rehearsals were, although we're practicing, sometimes Peter would just like let us all sit and, think of pieces. He did most of the creative work, but members in the troupe would come in with, I got an idea. I had a dream last night. And it was great. It was
Fantastic.
great.
How many
Yes.
members did you have, Peter, in the beginning when your first performance? Did you have 5, 4, 5, 6? Like what happened?
The first precursor was about 6 people. And when we started the troupe after auditions, again, it was only about 5 or 6 people. But people, I mean, rehearsing every Saturday from like 10 to 5, that was an incredible commitment for young adults to make.
Absolutely.
And so, I came up with some ideas, but they were full of ideas. And so I was lucky in that my role sometimes was reduced to polishing, their ideas. And they were incredible. So, it was a real balance between some of the things that I wanted to communicate and some of the things that they felt were important. And we just put it all together. And it worked. So we were very happy and fortunate.
Did you have like sort of themes or messages that you wanted to get across? Because like Denise said, it was a multi-ethnic group, and that was a kind of a revolutionary time period. Were there things that you specifically were trying to get across in your performances?
I don't think that we started out by saying, we're going to talk about the racial divide. We're going to talk about the economy and the lack of equity. I think that the ideas really came out as a result of people just brainstorming and saying, here's a setting. What can I do with the setting? We would do some things that could be as simple as 2 people in a department store grabbing for the same sweater. And that led to, push and pull. We did some things that were takeoffs on commercials, TV commercials. And then we did some very serious pieces based in part by music. Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel was about, for us, blindness and being able to see. We had a couple of Jim Croce songs about cats in the cradle and the relationship between parents and children. So it just evolved into a brainstorming session and then we put together different ideas and hone it down and see if it really worked or not. But it wasn't based upon any overwhelming themes of the time, although it did reflect what people felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Denise or Jackie, did you feel like, I'm interested in what the opinions or the feelings of your classmates were that weren't in the troupe? Did they think you were, theater kids or strange people, or what the hell are you doing? Like, how did you communicate, like in the daily class, going to school, like what you were doing, and how did they respond to this? this magical thing you were involved in?
So I'm gonna say when we first started out, and okay, we were second to the drama club. Later on, we became better than the drama club, and they would just give us airtime. And after we would do a show, everybody wanted to join the mime group. And they would come in, I want to join the mime, I want to join the mime. Peter, he would be like, okay, okay. And you have all these people, and he would sit there and go, what am I going to do with all these people? And he would try. We had, Peter, we had to have about 15 people at one time, huge group. And he was like, okay, and just giving people things to do. But just like he said, the commitment was very hard to keep up with. So people would drop out, and some people would linger on. But it was like I told you, we were like celebrities. Everybody come in there, yo, Pete, I want to be in that mime troupe.
Yes, it wasn't Mr. Kaufman. It was Yo Pete.
Was there an internal, like, the group itself, did you maintain your own brand of discipline? Was there a kind of a culture within the group that helped people commit more to the group, like a sports team, right? Was there some kind of, energy that kept you together? And, it's like a sacred, vision that you had.
It's a great question. Jackie really alluded to it. There were a couple of dynamics that were going on. Nisi, all kidding aside, was just a beautiful mime, and was
she probably still is. She could still be performing.
I'm sure she.
I'm going to talk to her about
it. The idea came up, and I think Jackie was one of the main people who said we should do it again. But in any case, I think people seeing Nisi do this look to her as a leader. She was the senior member of the troupe. We also had somebody who, in the very beginning of our rehearsals, would lead stretching. So there was a routine. There was a discipline and a respect for one another, and also a respect for one another's creativity. And I think that really spoke volumes. And I think that as people grew closer, it was just not only about performing, because we performed in some of the strangest circumstances. And when you go through those experiences, you grow together like a family. We were out on somewhere out in Long Island, and we said, where can we get into makeup? And they said, oh, there's that big bathroom. So we all piled into the big bathroom, and the only mirror was about 12 feet high, and we didn't know why it was there. And so one of the people in the troupe got on the sink to put on her makeup. And of course, the sink fell off the wall. And you can only imagine, after that, what happened. So, when you go through a range of experiences from crazy things like that to, deeper meaning of the pieces, it just brings people together, and the discipline just follows from that. The caring and the discipline, just people see what others are doing, and they do it as well. So we were very fortunate in that way.
There's a movement, especially in Black churches, that there are mime performers in spiritual performers in Black churches. And I'm wondering, maybe we can talk about it more at length later, but that's a very profound element that a lot of people don't know about, unless you're a member of a Black church. But Denise or Jackie, that's true. I see Jackie, you nodding your head. What's your feeling about that? Like maybe in some connection to some of the things that Peter was saying in terms of the sense of community that can be formed,
Well, I think that grew out of the praise dancing. So praise dancing is very
Mhm.
Similar.
happens in Black churches all the time. And as you said, more recently, you see an addition of mime whiteface
Right.
in the praise dancing. So, I'm not sure exactly what the meaning is, but it could be just to add emphasis to praising, and just to highlight, because that's what mime is, right? To make the expression bigger. Even when Nisi talks, which is why I love her, because she's always a mime. Like whenever Nisi tells a story, whether she has white face on or not, you're gonna get the full expression. And I think that, as you can see, and I think that's what, and we all kind of do it. We all are very animated. We're big, and whenever we talk and when we're telling a story, my son always says, "Get to the point," but I have to paint the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that could be why the mime has become a part of praise dancing as well,
Yeah,
just to help that last person in the last pew get the message as well as the person in the first.
That's interesting because you say I haven't heard that term praise dancing, but I'm assuming that a form of that was always present for many decades. That, and then the mime sort of kind of started to emerge out of that. But it's very similar to the art of mime itself, because we all know that mime was the form of communication and ritual around the campfire with humans, like centuries and thousands of years ago. So it's what you're saying about this spiritual release and this amplification of very important elements. It's all there.
And it's also the unique aspect of silent mime is that the words don't get in the way. It's really just something that's very visual, and you connect to the audience directly without any kind of vocabulary or big words or anything getting in the way. So it's like, Jackie, when you said that you saw it as a young person, you're just like blown away that you could absorb this story that without any words. So
what was this Peter, how would you describe the style? Was it a Marceau style or a Lecoq or a Charlie Chaplin, or how would you describe or was it a mix? Like most substantial arts are a mixture of many different, like my background is sports and some contemporary dance and just a wild imagination, so how do you put all that so what was the influences?
Yeah, it really was eclectic. I mean, Marceau obviously was the most well known, and we would often watch some tapes of him doing things and focus on the body control and so on. But there were several pieces that we created. It's interesting that you mentioned Chaplin. That when you watch old films, you see the speed of somebody walking much quicker, and so we would mimic that, in some of the pieces that we did. So it's really a different approach. It was also a very personal approach. People, there was a discipline to learning the art. And then there was a great flexibility in using it to tell a story.
Yeah.
So that's really the sum.
It sounds like the music was a very important part of what you guys did. Every piece have a musical score behind it, or was influenced by music?
Almost every piece was influenced or based upon music. And one of my concerns, we were slated to do a show at the Lexington School for the Deaf. And so I went there to prepare for it, and was unaware of, many things having to do with people who were hearing challenged. And so, of course, I said, well, do some of the students hear and some not, and to what degree? And I said, we have music. How will they get the sense of the music, which communicates so much? And they said, we've set up our auditorium so that the speakers will vibrate to the beat of the music. So the students sitting in their seats in the auditorium will get it. And I thought that was incredible and fascinating. And they were perhaps one of our best audiences for some of the obvious reasons, but they got it. They got the music and they got the stories. And so you know, we were constantly astounded that people could adapt and get it, and particularly
Yeah,
in
it's
this.
very interesting. I'm doing a show now that's a mixture of my classics as well as brand new pieces, and I call the show Mime Songs, because every mime piece for me is like a song, you know, in terms of energy, in terms of time and space, in terms of rhythm, in terms of lyrics, you know, like thoughts. But they're all, you know, every mime piece is like a song, so it is a natural connection to actual music, you know, very, very powerfully.
And
I,
you know,
but go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Peter.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, when we do a show at Hillcrest, one of our tech stage managers would be in the booth, but there were also, you know, other high school students assisting with lights and other elements of sound. You know, the tech rehearsals were very long and arduous because it wasn't traditional theater. It wasn't a traditional spotlight. It wasn't a traditional anything.
Yeah.
So we literally had to educate the students who were running the booth, you know, as well, and you know, in terms of getting them to feel the rhythm of the piece, in terms of lighting and cues, and getting them to feel the rhythm of the music and how it was infused into, you know, the story. So that was a sidebar that was always very interesting to me.
Yeah, mime is basic theater, the basic theater art. You know, all the elements that you do in performance are in the art of mime. So it's very intricate. People don't realize that it's, you know, I believe mime is a stage art. It's not necessarily a street art or a birthday party art. It should be on a stage. And all the elements that go into a good mime show are the basis for good theater, you know, in terms of what you're saying. So there is an education component. Did you guys feel that you were like missionaries, like when you would go to perform in another venue or for another school or institution, that you were introducing a new kind of, you like, what do you think, Jackie? I see you
Yeah,
agreeing with
I felt that way. I felt
Yeah.
that way. Because I came into the Mimestrals in the, I guess it was maybe in the 80s,
80s, yeah, 80s.
80, 79, 80. And so I don't think it was as popular as it was in the 70s, right? So we were coming out of this, you know, mime mania.
Yeah, the
And
golden years,
yeah. And so people didn't know, like, what's mime? Like, what is that? What are you doing? Like, what is that? You know? And so, yeah, I do think we were introducing mime to folks. And like I said, it wasn't through my high school. So we didn't have a pantomime program in my high school, a mime program in the high school at all. But we were going to places within communities. You know, we were in front of children, we were in front of older adults. And yeah, I think we were introducing a new theater form that people hadn't thought about for quite some time, reintroducing and introducing.
yeah.
Oh, so Peter, tell us that story that you were talking about. This Jackie reminded me about it, that you had a program that was seniors and children. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, I was having a conversation actually with somebody who worked peripherally with New York State Council of the Arts, and he was saying that, you know, there was a new grant program called decentralization in an attempt to get funding to local groups and not to the most popular groups who were performing at Lincoln Center necessarily, but to people who really got out to be with the people. And he said, you know, your target audience is going to be half the selling point to this grant, and suddenly it dawned on me that because of people in the troupe talking about their grandparents, and how, in a positive way, childlike they were,
Yeah.
that I said, well, what if you have people who are childlike but so experienced combined with kids who are indeed childlike because that's their age? And one of the things that we did in this series is we did a shorter performance followed by a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And we divided the audience so that the kids would be partnered by pairs or threes or fours with senior citizens.
Ah.
And so to watch them interact, normally an audience member, and if you say, okay, I want you to do these hand movements, they're very inhibited. Not one time did I ever see a senior citizen or a kid stop, look at themselves, be doubtful. They jumped into the deep end.
Uh-huh.
And here you had somebody who was 90 and somebody who was 7 communicating better than anyone else that I had ever seen without speaking.
Yeah.
And so that was really one of the greatest things for us to see.
So Peter, when the ensemble would go in and do a show, did the ensemble then actually teach a workshop, or were you teaching the workshops?
No, there were times when most of the time I would lead it from the stage area, and what would happen is that the people in the troupe would kind of take over in their little groups because they would have to assess the learning capability and speed with which people got it. So they knew the entire routine, shall we say, that we used. And so I would start it off, or I would pick it up if it seemed to be falling off. But I liked the involvement of the members of the ensemble being out in the audience and taking that kind of responsibility.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful to watch.
That's an extraordinary experience for high school age students to not only have to be responsible for a performance, but also to take charge and to teach, to be able to teach at that age. Jackie and Denise, do you have any memories of teaching workshops?
Oh, absolutely. We would, it was scary at first because we did a show with in a daycare center, and the kids, we run out in the audience and they were scared of us. So, and some of them would cry, some of them would pee.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And then when we would bring them up on stage, and we would get the feeling of helping them move their hands and how to, flow in your movements. And it carried over right into when we would go to rehearsal. And we really became pretty good because we had to help each other. And some of us are a little bit better at certain things. And we would get together. Okay, show me that moonwalk. Show me that, climb. And it's a learning experience and a teaching experience across learning from each other.
Yeah. Jackie, did you have any experience when you were in the troupe? Did you do any of the teaching too?
I do remember doing some of that, but I just wanted to point out, now that I've been an educator for 32 years, and in Peter being an educator, the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. I've taught all along, and I always say that the teaching helps me to think out what the parts of my performance, and then the performance helps me to be able to do exactly what I'm teaching. It comes together. And as a teacher, you always, every class is a learning experience for the teacher. I think all of us will agree with that, correct?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so I am very curious, particularly Peter. You have a lifelong educator. You too, Jackie. In the education system, what what is the role of creativity, or what should the role be of creativity and the arts, and in particular performance? What does that play in the development of young people?
I think the answer is a qualified one. I think for the most part, through New York City's what we call large high schools are called academic comprehensive high schools with anywhere from 2,000 to 4,500 students. And even in, outside of New York, schools are crowded and so on. Students look to be in the spring production, which is always a musical and has 700 people on the stage at once, and that's their experience. And I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be more people looking at physical theater. There needs to be more people looking at dance as an art form. And I think that there needs to be a diversity of creativity. And I think that's what's lacking. Communications and theater departments tend to be the first to be cut when there's a budget cut.
Mhm.
So we're left with, a 16-year-old's interpretation of Hello Dolly, as opposed to the Mimestrals ensemble creating their own work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
That's what art is. I mean, that's art. That's what art is. You're supposed to write. You're not supposed to paint by the numbers. You're supposed to paint a picture. That's
Right. It's
Yeah.
true.
yeah.
When you look back, Jackie and Denise, when you look back to your experience as being a part of the troupe, the discipline and the rehearsals and the performance and the teaching, look back and see how does that relate to the trajectory of your life. And I don't know which one.
Can I just jump back to the last question first? As an educator, I think that it's really important, especially now, since there's so much focus on the big four, science, math, reading, and social studies, and testing, that arts is lacking. And what art does is teaches critical thinking, analytical thinking, builds self-confidence, resiliency, and all of those life skills organically. It comes organically from these experiences that children really need. And so that's one of the reasons. There are a plethora more, and we can talk about that in another podcast, that children need. And
I think that's a good idea. I think we should have another. I think I was going to mention later that this is a whole movement that we create again of how get Mime back in the schools. Because of what Jackie just said, because it's all true. Teamwork, everything is there.
And it was a great sense.
Yeah.
A great sense of involvement, like Jackie, when you said, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to try it at least." And some kids are like afraid to try things. If you're not going to be a great success, you don't want to try. And if you have 20, 30 kids on it, we had so many people in the troupe and they didn't make it, but they tried. They tried.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you see that experience in your high school days? I know the arts played a huge part in my high school years, and it really sent me in the particular direction. Do you see that in your life?
Well, as far as mine, for me,
Mhm.
I say anything that I see that I want to do, I say to myself, I can do that.
Wow.
I can do that. I'm a mime. I can do that. I'll just follow you, and that's how I carry myself throughout my life, and just mimicking what I see people doing, and I even learning different skills throughout my life. I'm taking care of my grandma, my husband's mother right now, and I watch the nurse, and I go, I can do this.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, did you have training? Yes, you, my eyes.
Yeah, observation. I mean,
Yes.
Mime develops this acute awareness of where you are and what are the
Yes.
circumstances. It's a beautiful form for just the development of a human being, you know. So
I think,
tell us
one
about
of
some
the things,
disaster stories.
Hold
Like,
well,
on.
yeah,
Let's
go ahead,
finish.
Peter. Yeah.
well, I was just going to say, and I have a couple of great disaster stories in addition, but one of the things that, I've taught at City University of New York, and my students were graduate students in a master's program for educational leadership. And, we always would come back to how students learn best. And students learn best when they feel confident, when their self-esteem is raised. And one of the things about the arts and about learning and being able to do learning, learning through doing, is that it builds self-esteem and prepares one to learn, as Denise was saying, other things. So I can't talk enough about the connection between the arts and building self-esteem. But I'll get to the disaster story. In New York, there was
Peter, before you get to that, just
sure.
finishing up with the confidence, what Peter would do, Nisi and another gentleman, Jesse, were like the primaries. They were like, Audra McDonald and Swan Lake. And so they usually had their own piece, if not together, separately, and in each show. But what Peter would do is, as you evolved and you got better, he would designate a show, like, I'm getting emotional, like, it's your turn, like, this is your show. And I remember Peter came to me and said, this is your show. Wow. This is your turn. And so it's like, you can never be as good as Nisi or Jesse, because they were like top. They were top of the top. And so for Peter to come to you and say, it's your turn, where this show is yours, really does boost your confidence. And it says that you're good and you can do this. And we all are here to support you. And a young person needs that.
It's true.
An old person clearly needs that. And so that's what the arts do. That's what teamwork does. That's what a community does. And that's what the Mimestrals created and continue to create beyond the walls of the high school.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. That's beautifully said, Jackie.
That's
Very good.
That's beautiful.
Very good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Hi, baby. I'm sorry.
But it's so interesting to me because it's so real to you right in this moment many years later. That was so profound that it did influence your self, your person, and how you developed. That's beautiful. That's awesome.
Tell us a disaster story. Let's shift
so
gears a little bit, because we'll get back to the emotional stuff a little later. So
we went to do a show at a large restaurant and catering hall, which was not our normal, venue, but it was a benefit performance for learning disabled children. And so the restaurant was closed and it was just this afternoon for the kids. So they invited us to perform. And I said, oh, by the way, Governor Cuomo will be there with his wife and his mother.
You're talking about the original, like the
yes,
elder.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
Yes, Mario Cuomo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the one who had ethics. Anyway, so we get there early, and as is our tradition, we find a bathroom to get into makeup and so on. And people weren't shy, the males and the females would be in the same bathroom and they'd be dressing, and it was just, oh, I'm getting dressed for a show, putting on whiteface. So in this state of half undress, in walks Matilda Cuomo, the governor's wife, and his mother, who was about 97 years old. And they say to me, "Where's the bathroom?" And I said, "Oh no, oh God." And before I could say wait, they headed towards the bathroom where the troupe was. They opened the door to see, 15 people of color, half of them in their underwear, and the other half in whiteface and underwear. If the mother didn't have a heart attack then, I think that Matilda caught the mother because she was about to keel over. And Matilda's first words when she got out of the bathroom was, "What the hell was that?" And so we had to explain to her that we were there, to perform, and we would hope that, she would participate. I think she got into the limo at that point and left. I don't remember. But I just remember the look on her face and his mother's face when they opened that door in this tiny bathroom, and people were climbing all over to have space. So that was one of the many disaster stories that, we had to live through.
But your performance afterwards, I'm assuming, was very successful.
It was, it was because, the people in the troupe got used to adversity, and, they weren't expecting a green room. We weren't on the Tonight Show. We weren't expecting, people to get us bottles of water, or certain food. We were out there grinding it out. And so, that kind of thing, we laughed and we said, okay, she'll recover. And we went out and did a show. It was just, part of who we were. So,
probably also the thing that kind of draws you together as a group, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh. Hi.
Hey, listen. Did you by any chance get a package from the Mime Museum?
Yes.
Yeah. What about you? Did each of you get a package?
Yes.
That
yes,
little
I
music.
did.
That little music says it's time for the gift.
It's time for the gift.
So we can open this envelope?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Should we go one at a time? Should we go one at
I think we all open them up at the same time. They're at the same time.
then we'll go one at a time and see what you've received.
You have to understand that the Mime Museum is kind of big, but it's kind of losing space because everybody sends all this stuff. So we have to deacquisition. So we're returning it this belongs to each of you. So you're getting it back.
Oh.
But do you want to read what it says, Peter?
Sure. Okay. It's from the Mime Museum. And it says, item found backstage at high school auditorium and sent to the Mime Museum for storage. During a Hillcrest High School award ceremony, when letters were given out to football and basketball star athletes, the enclosed letter was meant to be awarded to Peter Kaufman as the founder and director of the Mimestrals. Oh my.
This is
Did you each get a letter? Yay! M for Mime.
That's great. That is so wonderful.
Now you have an official high school letter sweater that you can.
Yeah, I was going to say now we have to buy the jacket.
Yeah.
So, with the white leather sleeve.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, this is so thoughtful. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's too bad that you didn't get it back when they were handing them out back in your high school days. You were supposed to get it back then. All these years later, finally, you're getting it. That's really good.
Not only it's never too late, and sometimes when something is this late, it has even more meaning. So, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your reunions. This group stayed, in touch, and you had reunions. And okay, so is there going to be like a revisiting of the Mimestrals? You're going to put another show together?
Well,
well,
Jackie keeps bringing it up, and one of the people in the troupe is now.
You keep bringing it up. Why do I keep bringing it up?
Well, I'll let you answer that in a second, but I just need to finish this thought. So Jackie will go around, Denise as well, canvassing people to see who would do a show. And people got very quiet, as mimes do. And so one reaction from a gentleman who is now an assistant attorney general in New York State said, the only performing I do is in a courtroom. And there were other reactions ranging from I couldn't get leotards on now to all kinds of reactions. So what my thought was before this pandemic was that to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Mimestrals, that we'd meet in New York City, and have this big celebration with, a lot of the people who helped us become successful, some of the teachers that were at Hillcrest and some of the other people. But that's kind of on hold until travel becomes a lot easier. But what I've been doing is, as a memento, I've been sending bracelets that say ID bracelets that say Mimestrals 50 to everybody in the troupe. And when we can meet, we'll all be wearing that Mimestrals 50 bracelet and celebrate 50 years. So
look at that. I can see it. That's great. How many people are on that list of people that have been in the Mimestrals?
I can tell you that it's a very expensive endeavor.
Thank you, Peter.
But
I'm wearing mine.
but so well worth it that it didn't faze me whatsoever. But the list grew to about probably 30 people.
Wow.
People who were teachers at Hillcrest in theater careers. Steve Posner, who was the head of the department, who was just one in a million. And then there were other students who just helped promote, the troupe and so on. So I had to track down some of the students from the early years, who are now almost as old as Denise. And we tease her, about her age, but the first members, like Denise, are 65. And some of them have grandchildren, including Denise. And she's got the hat on because the hair is gray.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm going to ask the question. I'm
yeah.
going to ask the question. So we're talking about 50 years and all this time. So with Jackie and Denise, so you've had other careers since that time. If you could tell us, maybe start with you, Jackie, what your career was substantially and how this experience with the Mimestrals impacted your accomplishments and what you drew from that experience that helped you. And then Denise, I'd like to hear from you too, like what your career was and then how this experience impacted you and how valuable it was. Why don't you go first, Jackie?
I've had several careers, and my first career actually, I had to leave the Mimestrals because of that career. I joined the military as a reservist when I was 20. And so I was in the Mimestrals from 15 to 20. And my weekend drills interrupted those Saturday rehearsals. So I was no longer able to attend Saturday rehearsals. So I had to stop. And so I was in the military from age 20 to 2014, 29 years. Wow. In the military, I had 4 deployments. I got I was primarily an educator like Peter, and I was in education for 32 years. So I did those 2 simultaneously. And the latter part of my career, for 13 years, I served as a councilwoman in my town. So I was an elected official So I did those three things simultaneously. I would say being a part of the Mimestrals really taught me team building and resiliency. As I said, all of those things, thinking critically and analytically, not only leading, but knowing how to follow, right? And
Yeah.
and in all of my careers, those are skills that were critical to my success.
Wow. What about you, Denise? How has the mime shows impacted you over the years? And what did you do? What was your what
I
careers did you have?
worked New York City Department of Corrections, and I was from 1987, and I had no idea what working in a jail was like. And if you can imagine, you want to keep a distance from the inmates, but you need to communicate with them. And I found myself literally performing all the time because you have to, yes, you have to set a tone. I'm not here to play with. If you need something, and you would sit there, with your, stank face on, excuse me. But sometimes the inmates really need, sometimes they want to play with you, or they want to play because they have nothing else to do. But sometimes they really had needs, and they would come up to you, and then I would notice that this is a person who's really, needs to talk or needs some services. And they would come up, and I would go, okay, how can I help you? What's going on? And then they would feel the warmth of, okay, I could talk to her. And it was using mime wherever you go. Like I said, anything I do after when I leave my door, strange things to me. I'm like, I see somebody doing, my husband is a plumber, and we would go and do plumbing jobs. And I go, I could do this. I would get in the plumber's helper. Then after I retired, I had a party room, and we would have parties. And it just, you mimic the things you see, and you continue on working because I can do anything I can see right now.
Yeah, I'm curious because everybody's saying how fantastic you are as a mime.
No.
I'm wondering why you stopped. Like, why? What was it? Economic things or cultural things? Or I'm just curious why this fire in you, had to be channeled somewhere else.
Okay, so there are a few things that happen, and one of the things that happened during the time that I was in the troupe, and I'm in high school, and I had a baby. And I came into rehearsal. We had a show in June in that year. And then we break for the summer, and we come back. And I was so embarrassed, and I was so sad because, I didn't know how to tell it. And I came to rehearsal, and Peter, I didn't share it with Peter or anybody. I came back to school, and we're talking, and he says, so what did you guys do this summer? And I go, I had a baby. And Peter was like, he was shocked. Everybody was shocked. And I was shocked I was saying it. And so Peter, without judgment, he said, okay, so we have another member in the troupe. And he's like, okay, get on the floor. We're going to have stretching exercises. And I don't know if it was because he had no answer or he was just totally dumbfounded, but I was still accepted. I had another year of high school to do. And Peter was my friend and am I confident? Hey, after you go through something like that, And I'm like, my life is not over, because that's how I was feeling. I was feeling like this is done. And then I kept on working with the mime troupe. And also, I have to work on the outside, but we continued mime. And I just, as a person with a child now, I have to make money somewhere.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
went out.
So I'm wondering what barrier. I mean, there's the obvious barriers but like great artists, how a lot. Your story is not special. It's you. I mean, what I mean by that is a lot of people have had this experience, in their
Yeah,
lives. So what I'm
yeah.
wondering how, what can be done to help people that have this talent to continue, especially in the art of mime, because it's a very specialized form, and some of it, as we've already talked about, it's really hard to learn, and you got to commit to it, and you got to spend a lot of time. It takes a special person to be a mime. It really does, and I think
It
the
does.
reason
It
there are less
does.
mimes is just people don't want to put the work in. They don't want to, and so I'm just, it would be so fantastic if you had continued performing, but you say you did in other ways, which is said
I
something.
did. And
Yeah.
I, kind of segued into, my next life of working with corrections. And now I have how many? 9 grandkids. So I am Nana on the go. And my granddaughter actually performs. So I often think of it. I do.
So this skill of observation that we've talked about, I'm assuming, I asked you earlier how maybe some of the mime skills might have helped you in the jail, for example. Could you read body language? I mean, you definitely had to develop a rapport that was.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And the same with you, Jackie, in the military. I'm sure your observation of the way attitudes and those skills that you honed as a mime helped you a lot. Yeah.
Especially as a guidance counselor, for the last 22 years in education, I was a high school guidance counselor, and those skills were tremendous because 16 and 17-year-olds don't want to tell you how they feel, but when you can read them, whether their body language, their facial expressions, how they move, their gait, you can tell a lot. And oftentimes I tell them how they're feeling, and they're like, Miss, how did you know that? Don't worry about how I know that. Just let's finish this conversation, So.
Oh, it's getting kind of hot in here.
Are you hot?
Yeah, the temperature's going up.
That's what it is. Okay.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for rapid fire. This is the program.
This is your chance. We were talking about you guys getting your troop back together. So now it's like, let's see what you got still.
So this is a word association game that we would like you to play if you're game. So all 3 of you can do it, or one of you, but it'd be great if all 3 of you could do that. And what it is I just throw out some words like light, and then you can physically respond in the moment, or you can say a word back if you want, or both at the same time. So it's just, just off the top of your head, you'll give a reaction. I'll go through a list. Okay. That's fun. And
remember how to move.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna let the 2 performers do it.
All right. That's fine.
I'm actually having a battery issue. So I only have one hand because I'm holding my phone with the other one.
Oh, that's no problem. No problem.
Okay.
This will be short and sweet and fun. Okay.
Okay.
Jackie and Denise, you want to try?
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Peter, if you have an inkling to jump in there, feel free. You never know what you're going to feel in these moments. Okay, ready? So just physically, one word or both together, okay? But primarily physically, if you'd like to. All right, here we go. Child. Good. Back door. Front door. That's great. Front door. Good. Hands. Great.
Good.
Mask. Mask. Good.
Yeah.
Storm. Fantastic.
Nice.
Heart. Heart. Good. Future. Future. Nice.
Oh, beautiful, Jackie. Nice.
Laughter.
Oh my God, what a face, Denise. That's great.
So good.
Old. Oh, old. Good. Teacher. Mime. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Rapid Fire by Denise and Jackie.
Oh,
We got to do one for Peter, though. Peter, I'm going to put you on the spot. We're going to do one, just one with you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Accomplishment. It's him, ladies and gentlemen. It's him. Okay, great.
that was beautiful. That was so beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. That was great.
And thank you so much for the M. Thank you. Appreciate the time. And thank you for having us.
I got one more question. We're not
wonderful.
finished yet. We got just a couple of questions.
Oh, you do? You have more questions?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
curious about why there aren't more people of color who have become mimes, because in the history of mime in the United States, they're mostly old white men like me. Okay.
Mhm.
And women, there's less women. So one of our missions has been to find 50% of our guests to be women, because they are there, and also to find people of color. And we've had some great guests, Stephen Bisher and Michelle Matlock, who are fantastic performers and teachers. But I'm just wondering, what are your feelings on that? Why, whatever the reason, why more people of color haven't become mimes? Because you obviously are an example of, the riches and the flurry of imagination and creativity that can happen with anybody. So what do you think, Peter, or anybody? What do you think? What's happened here, do you think?
I think it all starts in school. I think people start to, develop their own personalities and their own personal interests and their own ability to be open to anything new. And that includes teachers having the same kind of feeling, ready to do something different, ready to experience students in a different way. My life has been characterized, if somebody said, tell me your one word about your professional life, I would say students. That's to whom I was devoted. And I think anything that of real value that can start as a cultural phenomenon starts in a school.
Yeah.
And I think, you look at urban areas where people of color are in the majority, and it leaves one to wonder, where is all the creativity? Where is the spark? My thing always was, I was amazed at the energy and creativity of all the students I encountered. And I think it needs to be a motivator, and that's what teachers should be doing. And I don't see the priority developing in graduate schools of education and in schools in general and districts. I think that the arts are always shunted, reprioritized. And I think that you'd see more people of color, particularly in urban areas, if you had more of an emphasis on developing creativity in the schools. And there aren't. There's an emphasis on testing and jobs, and not that jobs aren't important, obviously. But I think that we as educators have made a decision that it's either or, that it's either getting a job or not and being an artist. It's either workforce development grants or arts grants. Well, that means it has to be workforce development grants. So I think that we need to have a real different change in priorities, and that filtered down to the schools. You will see a real diverse group of students starting to do new things.
What about you, Jackie? What's your opinion? Or Denise? Go ahead, Denise.
I agree with Peter completely. With as far as schools are, the emphasis for African American, Black people, people of color, and they are driven so much towards sports, and they just fall down. I didn't make the team, and just gonna walk around after that. And there's, I don't know if the money is in schools or what's going on, that they don't have drama clubs. We know drama and performing in schools was one of the biggest hypes. Even if they did one show a year, everybody had their 15 minutes of fame. But it's not there. And people are afraid to fail. We would come into rehearsal and we would be like, Peter would say, okay, have fun. And that's how a lot of the pieces came out. You talk about different things, have fun. And you didn't hear that. Like, what? Have fun? What's fun? Everybody's so serious. Yeah. But it was strange. But in Hillcrest, as you speak about people of color, there were more mimes, more performers, and they were predominantly people of color, which is, to find out that the population of mimes is people of color are not there is a little strange to me.
Yeah, it's strange to me too. Because having been an athlete, the parallels between playing basketball, for example, and doing mime, they're identical almost in so many ways. It's very interesting. But I think it's this there's some kind of cultural division that pushes people away from something. So like it does start in schools. It also starts with parenting too. Like just,
I don't agree with that. I shouldn't say I don't agree with that. Okay. I think the other thing is that mime is a white segregated activity. So I think we need to flip the script, and we always talk about diversity, and we look at it from a Black and brown lens, meaning Black and brown folks are locked out. But actually, it's a white segregated activity where it's mostly predominantly white men that are segregated together. So when you give access and opportunity to Black and brown people, there's no issue, ergo Hillcrest High School. So once the access and opportunity is there for Black and brown people, there's no problem. So we need to desegregate the white arenas. And it's all over the country in a lot of things. It's not mine only. There are many areas in America that's white segregated that we need to integrate.
I think a lot of Black students, young people, they think, okay, so I'm only going to dance and I'm going to do hip hop and I'm going to bounce a ball. And that's it. It made the interest that the availability is just not there.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, Jackie, is like where is the funding for it? I mean,
Right.
and who's deciding who gets the funding?
Yeah, that's the point.
There's
Who's
so many
deciding?
times when I would go to an audition for mimes as a woman, the picture that they had for the poster for the audition was a man. And clearly they're not going to hire a woman to fill this role that looks like a man. And that picture of who's the performer, or what the stereotype of what that type of performer can be, is cutting out a lot of people. And
subliminally, you don't see yourself, so you don't, it's not anything conscious that's happening. You just think, oh well, that's not for me, and you move on.
Yeah.
Unless you're a different type of person, you know.
So how does that change, other than the obvious of funding, and you know, how does the white segment become less segregated?
We have to be conscious, and we have to make conscious decisions and not just fall into these narratives. A different hat is going on here, but we have to make conscious decisions, and we can't just rotely move through life. You know, it's a different world that we're living in. And so, and the landscape of America is changing. Even it's been this way since its induction, since we started, right? But it's becoming more obvious, and we're living more together with each other, and we have to embrace that, and we have to realize it. And so we have to start making more conscious decisions about it, and not just go on the way we have been in decades past.
Yeah. And a lot of that does come back to the schools, because that's the most obvious place where diversity happens, you know. So
that's where it starts.
Or can happen, you know. Very interesting. How did you feel? Here's one more question along this line. Did you two did you have any aversion or thoughts about the white face back, or was that more of a like a carnival multicultural expression, or was there any kind of second thought about, oh, I'm asked to put on a white face? And of course the white face, well, there's white faces in all cultures, you know, like in the rituals, of course, but what are your thoughts on that, the mime white face? Like, I don't perform in a white face. I haven't performed in a white face for probably 40 years, but I've been a professional mime. I use my normal face. Sometimes I'll use an eyeliner, but I'm just curious.
Okay.
Any thoughts from the past about that?
I always felt that the white face, you know, starting out, it accentuates, like Jackie said, it makes it like larger, and you can, you know, pronounce the thought that you ever. But it actually for me, I used to love the white face because I'm kind of a shy person. I know these guys don't believe it, but when I would put on white face, I would be someone else, or I could be different. I could be larger. I could be more pronounced and more bolder than I would without the white face. But I think that if people did line their face, it's still a form of your theater mask.
Yeah, it's a ritual as well as a functional. It makes your facial expressions more vivid and more playable.
Yeah.
So Peter, why would you not want to continue the work you started years and years ago? Like, it seems there's a gold mine of opportunity and for development of humans in this realm we're talking about. And I'm just wondering, why are you retired?
Florida. I'm glad you're not getting too personal.
Yes, Peter.
Yeah. I thought the conversation would be generic, but okay, it could be heard. You know, getting back to something you said before, you were asking Jackie and Denise, you know, how they came to, you know, move on to different careers. And for me, while I was directing the troupe, I was also studying to be a school administrator. And my ambition was to, ultimately be a principal. And I was involved in experiential learning and internships and so on. And so when I became an assistant principal, my responsibilities grew, and it became tougher and tougher to expend the amount of time I needed to do the Mimestrals and, my job. And so
the Mimestrals should be your job, though. We have to teach American culture, somehow.
Yeah. Well, you see, going back to inequities, when we would get grants, small amounts like $2,000 or $3,000, but there wasn't much money to be made. And certainly, the money we made just went back to, costumes and makeup and so on, travel expenses.
Travel.
So I think that, perhaps if I had it to do all over again, I would have looked at it differently. But the decisions I made were made, pragmatically about what I was going to do with my life to make it rich, but make money.
Make money.
And it's ironic in some ways is that now that I'm retired, I'd love to be doing more teaching than I am. There are some private people that I teach here down in Florida, but don't forget I live in Florida. I live in a very red state, where the arts, are defined as football and baseball. So it's a difficult, kind of thing to break into. So my experience has been working with not-for-profit, groups down here, arts organizations, and so on. It's a tough go, and it's also about prioritization and economic feasibility. And Jackie was talking about changing culture, and I think our culture needs to change to appreciate the arts and to devote more time, energy, and money to the arts. It can't just be an afterthought. And so, the reality is people need to go out and have traditional careers. And then when they retire, they can come back and do mine.
That's absolutely right. I was going to say that, like for Denise and Jackie, that now that you've accomplished, this work life, but now is a very rich time to continue this work. I'm finding that I'm 75 years old, so I'm finding I'm busier than ever with my imagination, and I'm just saying now might be the time to continue the mission, continue the love of this experience. And because the only way this is going to change if people that know that in our position, present it to others and introduce it to others. So,
and in particular, that you two women, as Black women, to go out and to somehow inspire young people to follow and to experience what you did as a young person.
Yeah,
that's very true. That's very true, Karen.
Peter, we never got back to it. I wanted us to do one more show because, believe it or not, we don't have one performance on recording.
One performance what? I didn't hear what
recordings.
Yeah.
Video is very scarce in those days.
Correct. So I've been trying to convince everyone to let's just do one more performance. So it would take a few rehearsals, of course, because everyone is rusty, including me. And just let's do one more performance so that we can get a recording. And I have no takers so far.
Because that an art only survives because of good teachers and also handing down the information. I mean, any craft, anything of value, you have to hand down your knowledge to the next generation. So mine is no different. It's And especially in times of social unrest and other things, physical theater tends to rise to the occasion because it is coming from the artists themselves. They're expressing themselves. And as you all know, you can do mime with you don't need much. You just need your body and your imagination.
Right. And it's amazing that more Black people are not into it because you don't need anything. You just everybody said, why do so many Black people play basketball? Because you only need a ball. And now you don't even need anything. You just need your hands and your face.
That's right. That's all you, and your eyes. You know, eyes are important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Karen, let's ask them the last question. The last questions.
Okay, first of all, we're going to give like this mime manifesto that the Mimestrals are going to come back. They're going to do another show so that we can inspire the next generation, because you guys had an awesome experience. So Jackie, Denise, Peter, what do you want to be when you grow up?
You first, Peter. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that. Because one of the things that I've thought about as a director is performing, and so I think what I would like to do, if we were to get everything back together, is to perform.
Let's do a mime festival in Florida. You organize it, and people will come.
Wow.
So you want to be a performer? How about you, Denise? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh wow! If I'm thinking that if Peter wants to perform, I would like to perform along with him and direct the show. I would like to direct him.
We have it on tape.
Yeah.
She's always wanted to tell me what to do, so it's finally coming out.
Yes, I always wanted to tell him what to do.
You're ready for that. What about you, Jackie? What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be an explorer.
There you go.
I can explore writing. I can explore performing. I can explore whatever I want.
This has been great, you guys. We've really appreciated you appearing with us, and it's been very, very rich conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Very welcome.